Some very interesting opportunities here in Vietnam. First off, read this disclaimer carefully. We will look at an ETF in this video and we will go to a specific country, and it is in South Asia. So Vietnam, a 61% gain here from the 52-week low. Some distance from the 52-week highs. So let's now first get the name. This is the VNM Factors Vietnam ETF. VNM is the ticker. Looking at the seasonality, between 2009 and 2020, you can see here that, we are currently in the early parts here of October. So it basically closes higher than it opened 50% of the time. November is a particularly weak month. So seasonality, there are some issues. If we compare it against the S&P 500, then we can see, the seasonality is mediocre. So nothing especially bullish here on the seasonality. Let's look at the charts. So this is the very long-term picture. This is basically, this is old history we have with this ETF. And this also should give you a bit of a hint of, the bigger picture here of the financial markets. Because this, if you look at it from the high to the current level, that's minus 53% to this recent low, minus 71%. So even though the S&P 500 and some of the other, country ETF indexes, they have, reached new highs post the financial crisis, there are many countries around the world which are still, so many years later, they are still in a bear market. Hence, it is very much the case that the 2008 financial crisis, it did break many markets, and you could make a very strong case that it is actually ongoing. And that should change how you view financial markets. So don't get fooled by looking purely at, the QQQ and the SPY, because a bull market, one of the key signs of a bull market is that there's broad participation. Compare it to a football team. If you have fewer and fewer players on the football team that are able to score goals, then you could make a strong case, that there's something very problematic going on, even though you have a few who score goals. So that's something to think about. So technically speaking, we can make a very strong case that we do have lower highs and lower lows. What I find particularly interesting here, which is very tradable, is the reaction here to this blue 100-week moving average. You can see that it is a very salient. Also here, the 50-week moving average here in green, you can see that price action reacts very much to it. Surgical test, support, rally. And here you can see that the 100-week is resistance, surgical resistance, and it's a fantastic shorting opportunity. So given that we know for a fact that this ETF really reacts to these moving averages, we can see here, we have resistance here at the 100-week moving average. Failure has been a fantastic shorting opportunity in the past. Hence, if you see clear failure here, then it's a short. Then again, we have seen that support levels, like, guess what? We have a key one here, that is the green 50-week moving average. So if we do see the continued support, then it's a good long. So it's a very tricky situation as far as, it's not tricky, it's more binary, because we have seen that it reacts both to support level and resistance. But beyond, the 100-week here in blue, we have the 200-week in red. So there is great resistance. The resistance is arguably stronger here than the actual support moving averages. Let's look at some other things. If you look here at RSI, it can be overbought for longer periods, also oversold for longer periods. So it is somewhat, it has in the past been more reactive to the RSI, it's been more of a tradable signal, but that has changed meaningfully. There's a minus 19% correlation with S&P 500, so that's interesting. Let's look here at the daily data points. So let's load these moving averages. Because it moves in these cycles, the moving averages are a bit thrown around, and that becomes especially visible here on the daily data points. Still, as we saw with the weeklies, it is very reactive to moving averages. The green 50-day moving average has been supported here. And you can also see these clear cycles. So let's look at some of these time cycles. So you see that there has actually been some, well, let's get them back again because they disappeared. So let's get the time cycles like that. So there is some clear consistency based on the time cycles. That's been working out pretty well. You can make the case that we are going to approach this high right here, but then potentially see some pullback. Let's also look at some of the longer term time cycles on the weeklies. Let's see if we can get some patterns. Let's explore a bit here. You could make some case for these time cycles to maybe a little bit broader. So you seem to capture some of the major cycles as well. You can also make them a bit smaller. So based on the time cycles, both in the weeklies and on the dailies, you could make a case that we are regardless of the time frame, we are towards the later part of the rising part of the cycle, and then you do have some issues with seasonality. Okay, so let's explore a bit further. So here are the valuations. So you can see that the PE is 16, you know, not horrible, but there are lower alternatives. The India consumer, this one has a relatively low PE here actually of, no, this is Inco, okay, Inco has 34. So Inco has the high one, and the low PE here is the iShares Asia Pacific Dividend ETF. So what kind of dividend are we talking here? Well, we are talking about 5% dividend. That's decent. India, that sounds very Indian. A very low dividend. So there's a 0.8% dividend here for the Vietnam ETF. So India, yeah, that's India. This super G dividend here, what is this? 28. That's a very high dividend. That's very impressive. Okay, so to sum up my take here on Vietnam, we have seen many interesting things, which makes this ETF very tradable. It is very reactive to moving averages. It's been good to find short selling opportunities, but also long opportunities. So that's great. Then again, you also have the cycles, the cycle patterns on the weeklies and the dailies that have also been quite tradable. So I think the essence of this market, Vietnam here, is that it is very tradable. As far as looking longer term, you know, you do have the problem that we have been in a bear market for a long time, which means that there is stronger downward pressure than upwards pressure. There are basically just more sellers ready than there are buyers. And we haven't yet seen the capitulation low yet. What I would like to see is a low, and then see a much more dramatic and consistent increase in the number of buyers stepping in, because that would be a sign that it's great value and that some of the bigger players are building positions. Whatever you do, of course, you don't want to fight the trend, and may the trend be with you.